Hello all. In the previous lessons, we have completed speaking about common and proper nouns, and we also spoke about parts of speech. In this lesson, we are going to speak more about how do we write a sentence. How should we write a sentence is going to be the central topic of our today's lesson. Basically, any sentence can be divided into two branches. The first is called subject and the other is called predicate. Subject is nothing but the person who does an action or the person who we are discussing about. So subject is always the person who does something, or he is the person that we try to describe. Whoever we try to describe, that person we call subject. Predicate. Now predicate is nothing but whatever is left in a sentence after you have written the subject, all that comes under predicate. If I have to take a simple sentence as an example, so I will take an ideal or I would say a simple sentence structure here. So predicate can be divided into verb and object. Object is the person or a thing that receives the action. So object is the one who receives the action. Verb is the action done. And subject is the one who does the action. This is the simplest sentence that we can write. It could be something like Ram killed Ravana. In this example, Ram is the subject. It is the person who did the action. And what is the action? Action is killed. And who received the action? Ravana is at the receiving end, so he is the object. This is the simplest of the sentences that we can write. So from here on, we are going to look at sentences that we can write, including different parts of speech. In here, we have only two parts of speech. First one is noun. Rama is a noun. Ravana is also a name, so even this is a noun. And this is verb, which means action. So we have only two parts of speech here. So we are going to frame sentences using different parts of speech, and some of our sentences are going to have almost all parts of speech, so that you get to know what the sentence, what the position of a particular part of speech should be in a sentence. And this way you can make more grammatically correct sentences. So let us proceed ahead. So here in this example, we have taken something very simple. In the next examples, in the upcoming examples, we are going to discuss something more complex. And anyways, here I am taking another example of simple sentence. In this case here, Mary is the subject, makes is the verb, music is again noun. So noun, verb and noun. So here we call this word makes as finite verb. which means a verb that is with a tense. We will more look into details like what a finite verb is and so on and so forth in the next few minutes. I hope you make a note of this. All these are very important because we are going to discuss different sentence structures. So please make a note of this and try to understand this, and only after understanding this simple sentence, proceed to the next sentence. Because as we keep progressing, you are going to learn a lot of new things. Earlier, I was telling you that the simplest form of a sentence is something like subject, verb, object. For example, I gave you an example like Ram killed Ravana, and I said these are in general the simplest forms of sentences. But we can actually make something even more simple than that. For example, stop. Now this word itself is actually a sentence. It is a complete, this is just a word, but it in itself is a complete sentence. Because here the rest of meaning is completely understood. Whoever is doing something, the moment you say stop, it means that we are asking that particular person to stop whatever he or she is doing. So it is a simple word yet complete in itself. So if you observe the previous sentence that we have taken, there I have taken examples like this. I said Ram killed Ravana, and I have also taken another example. I said Mary makes music. So in these sentences, there is a subject, there is an action, and there is a person who received it, or an object. There is someone who received that particular action. But here in this case, we do not need any object. So the verbs that do not need any object are called intransitive verbs. Intransitive verbs. And these verbs do not require any object. Because when I say Mary fell, so it in itself is a sentence. I don't really have to add any object here because she fell by herself. There is no person or thing that has received this particular action. So such kind of verbs are called intransitive verbs. These are the verbs that cannot take an object. However, there are some verbs that can be used both transitively or intransitively. Now the verbs that are transitive are the verbs which take object. So these accept object, but these don't. However, there are some verbs which act both transitively and intransitively, which means they can either act independently or they need an object to complete. For example, there are words like sing and walk. For example, I would make a sentence like this. For example, in this case I have said Mary sings bhajans. So here there is an object. But at the same time, even if I do not use this particular word, it would still make sense. Mary sings. Well, I don't really have to complete this. When I say Mary sings, it still makes sense. Similarly, if I say Anna walks, it makes complete sense because this person walks. So this sentence is complete. At the same time, I can even use object in some cases. For example, Anna walks the dog. So in this case, For this particular verb, we have an object. This is the object. So the verb walk and also the verb sing are both transitive and intransitive depending on situation. Now I want you to start thinking of some sentences where you can use intransitive verbs. Can you imagine or can you create any sentences like these with only 2 words? Just give it a try. Similarly, some sentences based on sentence 1. We spoke about sentence 1 structure earlier. So based on sentence 1 structure as well, try to build some sentences. And after you try to build some sentences on sentence 1 structure and some sentences on sentence 2 structure, please proceed ahead to the sentence 3 structure, which I'm going to proceed with next. But pause this video, work on those 2 things and then proceed ahead in the video. So this is the sentence 3 structure. So in the sentence 3 structure, we have an adjective along with a noun, a verb and an adverb. So if you remember, I have mentioned that adjective is a word that describes noun. And most of the times when you use an adjective comes before noun. So here is the noun and adjective comes before it. And I am saying most of the times an adjective comes first and then comes the word noun. Actually, it is the opposite case here. Verb always comes first and is followed by loudly. And I'm sorry about my previous sentence. It is not always, but mostly verb comes first and then comes the adjective. And this is the case in most of the instances. And I also told you in the previous lesson that in general we can identify an adverb when we find the word ly, because adverbs in general end with the letters ly. So this is the general identity of an adverb. So the word big is describing noun here, whereas the word loudly is describing, or I can say is modifying, the verb here. So this is adjective, noun, verb, adverb. This is how your sentence formation should be. In general, I have seen a lot of people write like this: big dogs loudly snore. So in general, writing loudly here is the correct form of sentence formation. But I have seen people writing big dogs loudly snore. If you are writing this, then it is incorrect. I want you all to think and write at least 1 to 5 such sentences which start with an adjective followed by a noun followed by a verb which is followed by an adverb. And after you finish this, proceed with the video. Till then, please pause this video. So if you see this sentence here, we have started to make a little big sentences. So here, under the subject, we have 3 words. Noun, which is dog, and an adjective. An adjective is nothing but a word that describes noun, little, and a definite article. In general, we have 3 articles. We have 3 articles. They are a, an, and the. In this, the is called definite article, whereas a and an are called indefinite articles. So here we are using definite article, and we use definite article when we are talking about something that we know, someone that we know, or someone or something that is unique. That is when we use definite article. Otherwise, we use indefinite articles like a or an. In this particular case, I am talking about a dog that I know. So that is the reason I'm using the word the here. The little dog can run fastly. So as learned in the previous sentence, adjective comes first and then comes noun. And same case here. Verb comes first and then comes adverb. So here there are two things that are new. One is definite article, and definite article or just an article. Usually articles come before noun, and in case if there is an adjective, then it comes before the adjective. For example, I can even write a sentence like a dog, or else in case if there is an adjective that I want to add, then I can write like this, a little dog. So it is article and immediately the noun, article and immediately the noun, or article, adjective and then noun. Next here, modal auxiliary verb. Now modal auxiliary verb is not the main verb. Of course, in some instances it can actually act as a main noun, but otherwise modal auxiliary verb is more like a helping verb. Apart from the main verb, we even have this as a helping verb. Modal verbs in general indicate ability. Indicate ability, possibility, permission, advice, deduction, which is more like inference, and so on. So modal verbs in general indicate ability, possibility, permission, advice, deduction, etc. So some examples of modal verbs can be can, could, may, might, will, would, shall, should, must, ought to. So these are modal auxiliary verbs. And what is a bare infinitive? A bare infinitive is the verb by itself. Something like, for example, whatever you can write with to. In general, when you write the word to, you cannot use any words like ing form or ed forms. Whenever you use the word to, the next word is plain verb. It's the purest form of the verb. There is no tense in it. So when I say runs, it means it is present tense, and if I say ed, it means it is past tense. If I say ing, it is continuous tense. But in this case, whenever we write to and then something, now this is called the bare form of the verb, or we call it the bare infinitive. So this is a bare infinitive, main verb in this case. Next, before we proceed to sentence 5, I want you all to practice on writing as many sentences as possible. Try to write at least 5 to 10 sentences using the similar sentence structure, and then we will proceed ahead to the next form of the sentence. So in this sentence structure, we have indefinite article, adjective, noun, like a new day. So this is similar to the sentence that we have discussed earlier, where we have definite article, adjective and noun. The only difference is here we are using indefinite article, a new day. Now here is the interesting part, be as auxiliary verb. There are different forms of be. For example, am, is, are, was, were. So these are all called auxiliary verbs, and these are only helping verbs. Of course, in some cases these can become the main verbs, but otherwise they are auxiliary verbs which are apart from the main verb. This is the main verb, and the one that you are seeing here is only an auxiliary verb. So the main verb can actually have ing forms. In general, if you have to identify the difference between a main verb and an auxiliary verb, you can identify the difference by using this ing participle. If you can add ing to a particular word, or I would say to a verb, in that case it is a main verb, and when you cannot add ing, it is an auxiliary verb. And under auxiliary verb we have two different types. So auxiliary verbs are two types. First one is modal verbs, and we have already seen what modal verbs are. Modal verbs are verbs like can, could, may, might, will, would. So those are modal verbs. And the next ones are called primary verbs. So these are what we call primary auxiliary verbs, and these are the primary auxiliary verbs. So please make some sentences based on this particular structure. Try to make as many sentences as possible, and after that we can proceed ahead to next sentence structure.